or rather like a triumphal procession escorting a queen. Matilda was received at the castle with distinguished honor, and the marriage celebrations and the entertainments accompanying it were continued for several days. It was a scene of unusual festivity and rejoicing. The dress of both William and Matilda on this occasion was very specially splendid. She wore a mantle studded with the most costly jewels, and in addition to the other splendors of his dress, William too wore a mantle and a helmet, both of which were richly adorned with the same costly decorations. So much importance was attached in those days to this outward show, and so great was the public interest taken in it, that these dresses of William and Matilda, with all the jewelry that adorned them, were deposited afterwards in the great church at Bayeux, where they remained a sort of public spectacle, the property of the church, for nearly 500 years. From the castle of Aughie, where the marriage ceremonies were performed, William proceeded, after these first festivities and rejoicings were over, to the great city of Rouen, conducting his bride thither with great pomp and parade. Here the young couple established themselves, living in the enjoyment of every species of luxury and splendor which were attainable in those days. As has already been said, the interiors, even of royal castles and palaces, presented but few of the comforts and conveniences deemed essential to the happiness of a home in modern times. The European ladies of the present day delight in their suites of retired and well-furnished apartments, adorned with velvet carpets and silken curtains, and luxuriant beds of down, with sofas and couches adapted to every fancy which the caprice of fatigue or restlessness may assume, and cabinets stored with treasures, and libraries of embellished books, the whole scene illuminated by the splendor of gas lights, whose brilliancy is reflected by mirrors and candelabras, sparkling with 1,000 hues. Matilda's feudal palace presented no such scenes as these. The cold stone floors were covered with mats of rushes. The walls, if the naked masonry was hidden at all, were screened by hangings of coarse tapestry, ornamented with uncouth and hideous figures. The beds were miserable pallets, the windows were loopholes, and the castle itself had all the architectural characteristics of a prison. Still, there was a species of luxury and splendor even then. Matilda had splendid horses to ride, all magnificently caparisoned. She had dresses adorned most lavishly with gold and jewels. There were troops of valiant knights, all glittering in armor of steel, to escort her on her journeys, and to accompany and wait upon her on her excursions of pleasure. And there were grand banquets and carousals, from time to time, in the long castle hall, with tournaments and races and games and other military shows, conducted with great parade and pageantry. Matilda thus commenced her married life in luxury and splendor. In luxury and splendor, but not in peace. William had an uncle whose name was Morger. He was the Archbishop of Rouen, and was a dignitary of great influence and power. Now it was of course the interest of William's relatives that he should not be married, as every increase of probability that his crown would descend to direct heirs diminished their future chances of the succession, and of course undermined their present importance. Morger had been very much opposed to this match, and had exerted himself in every way, while the negotiations were pending, to impede and delay them. The point which he most strenuously urged was the consanguinity of the parties, a point to which it was incumbent on him, as he maintained, being the head of the church in Normandy, particularly to attend. It seemed that notwithstanding William's negotiations with the Pope to obtain a dispensation, the affair was not fully settled at Rome before the marriage, and very soon after the celebration of the nuptials, Mauger fulminated an edict of excommunication against both William and Matilda for intermarrying within the degrees of relationship which the canons of the Church prescribed. An excommunication in the Middle Ages was a terrible calamity. The person thus condemned was made, so far as such a sentence could effect it, an outcast from man, and a wretch accursed of heaven. The most terrible denunciations were uttered against him, and in the case of a prince, like that of William, his subjects were all absolved from their allegiance, and forbidden to succor or defend him. A powerful potentate like William could maintain himself for a time against the influence and effects of such a course, but it was pretty sure to work more and more strongly against him through the superstitions of the people, and to wear him out in the end. William resolved to appeal at once to the Pope, and to effect, by some means or other, the object of securing his dispensation. There was a certain monk, then obscure and unknown, but who afterwards became a very celebrated public character, named Lanfranc, whom, for some reason or other, William supposed to possess the necessary qualifications for this mission. He accordingly gave him his instructions and sent him away. Lanfranc proceeded to Rome, and there he managed the negotiations with the Pope so dexterously as soon to bring it to a conclusion. The arrangement which he made was this. The Pope was to grant the dispensation and confirm the marriage, thus removing the sentence of excommunication which the Archbishop Mauger had pronounced, on condition that William should build and endow a hospital for 100 poor persons, and also erect 2 abbeys, one to be built by himself for monks, and one by Matilda for nuns. Lanfranc agreed to these conditions on the part of William and Matilda, and they, when they came to be informed of them, accepted and confirmed them with great joy. The ban of excommunication was removed, all Normandy acquiesced in the marriage, and William and Matilda proceeded to form the plans and to superintend the construction of the abbeys. They selected the city of Caen for the site. The place of this city will be seen marked upon the map near the northern coast of Normandy. It was situated in a broad and pleasant valley at the confluence of 2 rivers, and was surrounded by beautiful and fertile meadows. It was strongly fortified, being surrounded by walls and towers, which William's ancestors, the Dukes of Normandy, had built. William and Matilda took a strong interest in the plans and constructions connected with the building of the abbeys. William's was a very extensive edifice, and contained within its enclosures a royal palace for himself, where in subsequent years himself and Matilda often resided. The principal buildings of these abbeys still stand, though the walls and fortifications of Caen are gone. The buildings are used now for other purposes than those for which they were erected, but they retain the names originally given them, and are visited by great numbers of tourists, being regarded with great interest as singular memorials of the past, twin monuments commemorating an ancient marriage. The marriage being thus finally confirmed and acquiesced in, William and Matilda enjoyed a long period of domestic peace. The oldest child was a son. He was born within a year of the marriage, and William named him Robert, that, as the reader will recollect, having been the name of William's father. There was in process of time a large family of children. Their names were Robert, William Rufus, Henry, Cecilia, Agatha, Constance, Adela, Adelaide, and Gundred. Matilda devoted herself with great maternal fidelity to the care and education of these children, and many of them became subsequently historical personages of the highest distinction. The object which, it will be recollected, was one of William's main inducements for contracting this alliance.